Well, greetings and welcome to the wood shop. Today I am going to go over a lot of tips and tricks that you can use to be able to become a pro scroller. I have spent more than a decade building my own woodworking business completely around this saw. So whether you're just trying to learn a new tool, maybe build a hobby, or even starting a woodworking business of your own, the Scrollsaw is a great tool to start with. And since there's so much to cover, this is actually the final video in a 3-part series. If you missed the first 2 videos on where I help you choose the right scroll saw for your budget and what are the best blades to buy for your projects, I have left links in the description below. I also have resources listed for if you are interested in starting your own woodworking business yourself. And finally, as with all my videos, these are my own thoughts and opinions based on the experience that I have had running the Imagination Woodshop. But if you do find this video helpful, I would love for you to hit that like button, maybe even the subscribe button. It helps that almighty algorithm find me. And I would love to hear your thoughts and your comments. If you leave me a comment, I will answer it. I do read all of those. But with that, let's get into it. Today is all about cutting techniques that you can use and different projects that you can make to see, will it actually make money making stuff on a scroll saw? And the short answer is yes. With just a little bit of time and practice on this machine, learning the different techniques that you'll need, you can create a variety of projects that you can use to sell for a decent amount of money at your local craft shows, woodworking fairs, or even online. And probably one of the most popular types of scroll work projects that you can do is fretwork. Fretwork is basically using highly detailed pictures that you cut out the negative spaces to create your final design. Designs usually vary in complexity and typically are more time intensive, but they also sell for more money. Fretwork does require a lot of patience though, and a steady hand. It's never really been my favorite style of scroll work, but you cannot argue that the final results are definitely impressive. One caveat I will say with fretwork though, as in the last 5 years, is the market for that, or the value for that, I think has gone down a little bit because of the advent of lasers. Cheaper lasers that you can have for your home. Handmade fretwork on the scroll saw takes time, talent, and skill. And the problem is nowadays, a lot of people, when they're going through your craft shows, they can't really tell the difference between a precision laser cut or the increased price to justify hand-cut fretwork. So I think you just keep that in mind if fretwork is something that you love and want to create in your own. Moving on from fretwork, another popular style of scroll sawing is marquetry. Marquetry is a method of using inlays of various species of hardwood or veneered wood to create a larger, more detailed design. Marquetry, when done right, is absolutely gorgeous. And aside from marquetry, you have another style of scrolling, similar but different, called intarsia or intarnasia. I can't ever say it right. And these two are completely different styles of projects. With marquetry, you're usually using veneers to come together to create your final design. But with intarsia, you're actually using typically hardwoods to basically make your design, and it's going to give you more depth to your project because it's not a flat veneer, but a thicker or thinner style of wood to give the actual final product a really beautiful depth to it. I will tell you, this is actually my least favorite type of scrolling, and only because there is so much sanding involved. If you like sanding, this might be your lucky day. This might be the project you want to focus on. I will say also that there are specialized sanding tools that you can get to make your life a lot easier if this is a style of project that you'd like to dive into. I just don't have those, and I've never really felt the desire to get them. But you can't argue again that when done right, the final project, these may be probably the most beautiful style of scroll work that you can create. And then finally, one of the final styles of projects that I think a lot of people focus on, and is my primary focus that I love to do, is puzzle making. I think the reason I love puzzle making on the scroll saw is you don't have the intense sanding that goes on usually with marquetry and the fitting, and as well as the intarsia. but you also aren't stopping constantly to change your blade and take your blade out when you're working on something like fretwork. In puzzle making, you're just cutting. You're just cutting nonstop, and that's what I absolutely love doing on the Scrollsaw, is just cutting and not stopping. And I will say this, if you're a beginning scroller, getting into puzzles is probably a great first step. It's probably the least frustrating when done correctly, and it's a great way to get your feet wet as you kind of build up your skill set and your confidence when taking on a bigger piece like doing a complicated piece of fretwork. Now that you've decided what saw to buy, what blades to use, what project to make, it looks like you're finally ready to get on that saw and start cutting. I just want to take a few moments to show you some of the quick techniques that I use to make sure that you are cutting straight, cutting well, and getting a good final product. Now you have options of how you want to do your project on the wood itself. You could draw on your design, or you can do what I do, and I typically print the design off the computer of whatever I have saved, and then I attach that design with adhesive to the wood itself. If you're choosing to glue a design to the piece of wood itself, don't forget the important step of taking some packing tape, or at least some painter's tape, and putting it on the wood first. This does two things. One, and most importantly, it prevents the residue from whatever spray adhesive you're using on the paper from getting on the wood itself, creates a little barrier. And two, and this is probably an old wives' tale, so this is not verified, but I've always heard that the adhesive in packing tape especially actually acts as a lubricant for the blade and prolongs the blade life. I don't know if that's true, but like I say, I always do it anyway, at least for preventing the residue getting on the wood. It just makes for easier cleanup because you can just pull the paper right off and you're ready for your final product. But with that, let's say we cut out this T-Rex. As we start the cut, just make sure that you set the speed at an RPM that you feel comfortable using. I tend to run my saw at a high speed, but if you find that the cut is getting away from you, simply lower your speed of the saw to a number that you feel is manageable. This is also an important time to remember that you need to let the blade do the work. You shouldn't have to push too hard to make your cut. Two things if you find that you are pushing too hard. One, your blade is probably dull. Go and change your blade. Or two, if it's a fresh blade and you're pushing too hard, it probably means that the blade is too small for the thickness or the hardness of the wood that you're cutting, and you're going to need to move to a bigger size blade. If you're new and learning this tool, it's never a time to move fast, so just take your time as you build your comfort level and as you move through the cut. I always tell beginning scrollers, don't forget the teeth are only on one side of the blade, so never try to back your blade out sideways or push your blade too hard to one side. You are always moving in the forward direction. And never be afraid to really turn your wood. Just don't turn your wood where you're forcing the blade to move in a side-to-side motion. When cutting something like a puzzle, this is important to note. You may go outside the line, and that's not a huge deal. No one's going to see your design once the paper comes off. It is important to remember to not back out of a cut if you feel like you're getting off. Just commit to the cut and move through it. It's going to look fine once you remove the paper. Interior pieces of puzzles can be tricky, and this is important. You cannot back out of here. So if you find yourself wavering a little bit, just move through the cut and generally work your blade back over and slow it down. Take your time on those turns, because if you move the turn too fast, typically that blade will warp in the wood itself and your puzzle piece is going to bind when you actually go to assemble your puzzle. I just want to show you what I mean by out here in the waste part of the wood. When I'm taking my blade back and forth trying to get it back on the line, look how it widens the cut and it just makes for a junky looking cut. So just don't back your blade out, commit to your cut and follow it all the way through. If you've taken your time on these steps, the piece should just fall right out. And the good news about having the packing tape at this point is you can just peel that paper and that tape right off, and you've got a piece that's left without residue and ready for just some final surface sanding if needed. Congratulations, you got yourself a T-Rex leg. One final thing, don't forget, this is meant to be a fun tool to use. So don't let yourself get overwhelmed if you're not making perfect cuts the very first time out. It just takes a little time and a little practice, and before you know it, you'll be cutting out puzzles and fretwork and different marquetry designs that are gonna absolutely astound you. With that, I just want to say thank you for checking out this video, and hopefully you checked out the entire 3-part series. And what my real hope is maybe this kindled a little bit of a fire in you to go out and finally get that scroll saw of your dreams and start scrolling. That's really the important part, is no matter what you do at the end of the day, just get out there and get on a tool and enjoy yourself, learn the trade, have some fun, and come up with something that you'll enjoy doing. Again, if there is a question that I still haven't answered for you, don't forget, leave me that in the comment below so I can get back to you. Maybe while you're down there, maybe press that like button. Who knows, even subscribe. But with that, again, I just really appreciate you, and I'll catch you on the next one.